Shalom, my friends. Welcome back to the show. I am Tal, the traveling clat, your host here from beautiful Israel. And today we're going to be looking at another crazy little reaction here, this time from Ben Shapiro. Let's see exactly what's going on.
Hi, I just wanted to say that obviously Hamas is evil and bad.
Obviously.
I don't support religious extremism or fundamentalism in any, don't laugh at me, no, thank you, but religious extremism or fundamentalism in any form. However, to me, what I'm just really confused on is why you don't support the citizens of the people living in Gaza.
Oh my God, honey, I'm sorry, but you are not ready for this conversation. Luckily, Ben Shapiro is a nice guy, so I'm sure he's not going to bully her. But gosh, you are not ready for this conversation, my love.
And the West Bank, why you don't support them being able to also live inside of Israel?
Why don't I support them being able to live inside of Israel? Because they would immediately vote to destroy the state of Israel and interpolate another terrorist group like Hamas or the Palestinian Authority, endangering every Jew in the region. Everyone knows this.
But also 2 million of them live inside of Israel. Just remember that. They might not go by the name Palestinian, and they aren't because Palestinian is a nationality, so technically they are Israeli Arabs, but technically they are Palestinian. I mean, by all means, everybody considers them Palestinian.
A single state is not a solution. It would endanger every Jewish life in the region. This is why Israel has pursued a two-state solution. It's why the international community wants a two-state solution. The only party that doesn't actually want some sort of two-state solution seems to be the Palestinian Authority, which has rejected every deal ever put in front of it, and Hamas, which is seeking to kill Jews in, by the way, a non-settlement area. That's not even an area that's controversial. That is not even a disputed area where they were murdering Jews. That was just outside the Gaza Strip. That's been Israeli territory since 1947-48.
I, by the way, want to make a clarification. I, unlike Ben Shapiro, vehemently oppose a two-state solution, two-state solution. I'm against the two-state solution. One state, Jewish state, Israel as the country, no Palestinian state whatsoever. Shouldn't be one in Gaza, shouldn't be one in the West Bank. They cannot govern themselves. They're incapable of governing themselves, and it's not because they're bad people or genetically not able to. It's not a racist thing because every Arab in the world will consider me an Arab. My family comes from Iraq. Thank you very much, even though I am not an Arab. It's not a racist thing. It's just Palestinians have proven to us time and time again they're incapable of running their own state, incapable of governing themselves. One Jewish state with as not equal rights, because I don't think that can happen, with as best of rights as possible that we can offer people who aren't Jewish. The best we can. That's the most I think we should be offering anybody. Other people who prove to us that they are 100% devoted to the state, there's a different conversation to be had there. But there's no democracy in the Middle East. I don't think that we need to be a perfect democracy. That's just my personal opinion. I defer from Ben Shapiro on that opinion.
Historically speaking, okay.
Let me ask you a quick counter question. America is a country of 330 million people. There are a billion Muslims across the earth. Many of them live in places like Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and have very, very different opinions on politics and women's rights than I assume you do. You proclaim that you're secular and you don't like religious fundamentalism. How would you feel about importing, say, 300 million of those people into the United States? Would that make you feel like, is that a good idea or a bad idea?
I believe the reason that those people are, I believe the reason why they are religiously extreme is because of the conditions that they live under, because of the actions of America.
That's absurd and foolish. I'm sorry, that's absurd and foolish.
Imagine. This is called, Elika Laban, I think, coined this term. Maybe she didn't coin it, but she's popularized it recently, and it's something I've known about but never knew a way to put the term. It's called the racism of low expectations. Muslims, my love, Muslims have been acting this way longer than your grandparents had a sense of identity. Okay? Longer than when you guys immigrated to America, that's how long Muslims have been doing it, for about 700 years before that. Okay? When you guys skedaddled from Europe to come to America for better pastures. When you colonized America, by the way. Don't forget about that. Thank you very much. Muslims, Arabs have been doing this for about 1,000 years. And you know what? Let's even go back before that. This is the racism of low expectations, because never in the history of the Middle East has there ever been peace. Not in one freaking place. Not in Babylon. Not in Mesopotamia. Not in Assyria. Not in Kurdistan. Not ever has there ever been peace. We've always been a civilization of battling and killing each other. Okay, there's certain points in times where the empires have set up sovereignty, like when the Judean kingdoms did. Okay, but they didn't go out and colonize different regions. They didn't Judaize At least not frequently. It wasn't a case that happened. It was very, very rare when things like that happened. The Arab colonial empire, they came and colonized much of the Middle East and North Africa and Arabized everyone, as many people as they can, and then Islamized everybody as well. You don't get to come here and pretend like these guys are under this type of lifestyle because of America and the West. They have been doing this to themselves for 1,000 years. You don't get to come in here and be so racist that you expect so little of us brown people in the Middle East that you think we're not capable of picking ourselves up by our bootstraps and stopping to behave this way. We can. We're capable of it. You just don't believe in us because you're racist.
Yeah, and the reason that's absurd and foolish is because religious fundamentalism in the Islamic world did not begin in the year 1948. To pretend otherwise is to ignore literally all of Middle Eastern history. I mean, the fact of the matter is that since the time of Muhammad, and really since the year about 1100, when moderate Islam was pushed off to the side and the printing press was banned, the Islamic world has been replete with fundamentalism and extremism, repression of women, destruction of religious minorities or subjugation of religious minorities. All the happy talk about how everybody was living in some sort of utopian paradise where Jews were treated wonderfully is belied by the actual facts on the ground.
Very good, Benny.
Under Arab-speaking empire.
Very good, Ben Shapiro.
This idea that religious fundamentalism is driven by the West is honestly, it's so narcissistic on the part of...
I've had enough of this bullshit talking point. This is what got me into this game in the first place. I've had enough of this bullshit talking points that we lived in peace and kumbaya. We never lived in peace and kumbaya. Just because Muslims killed us a little bit less than the Christians who were persecuting us in Europe does not mean we lived in kumbaya and happy-go-lucky. 4 of my grandparents, all 4 of them came from different Muslim countries. All 4 were ethnically cleansed, abused, some of their family members killed in massacres, and they had to leave before modern Zionism, before the state of Israel. That's how fresh that is to me. That's how fresh that is to me. That's just my grandparents' generation who were born before the creation of the state of Israel. Muslims have been abusing us for literally 1,000 years. There's an amazing list on medium.com. Look it up. Medium.com, list of massacres or travesties done on Jewish people by the Arabs, by the Muslims. It long details the entire list. It's super, super detailed. And I independently verified almost every single one of those. I was shocked to find that it was true. This talking point of we all lived in peace is stupid, and it didn't happen.
Of Westerners to believe that the only reason that religious Muslims believe what religious Muslims believe is because of us. I promise you, religious Muslims don't believe what they believe because of you. They believe what they believe because of what they believe. And it's a soft bigotry of low expectations to pretend that radical Muslims don't have opinions of their own and must simply be driven by their lack of material success. That is not how the world works.
Absolutely. And she has nothing to say because it's true. She's been caught red-handed because she's being racist. She is being racist. It's so racist to imagine that these people are incapable of doing. I hate it when people infantilize the people of the Middle East. We are not infants. We are not babies. We're not incapable of coming up with our own opinions. The Arabs in this region choose to live this way. They don't have to. The Arabs and the Muslims of this region, they choose to live in this manner. They make a conscious decision every day to wake up and do this. They are not forced to do this. If they wanted to make a change in their society, they would have. They don't want to live in a different society. They want to live in this way. There's very few exceptions to that rule. The Gulf countries, Saudi Arabia, UAE, are starting to open their minds up a little bit more. Oman, they're starting to progress towards the future. Okay? But it took a long-ass time. It didn't come easy. But they're doing it, and I'm personally very proud as a fellow Middle Easterner, very proud of them for doing that, for stepping up. It takes time. You think my grandparents, when they made it from Iraq to Israel, they were just like in the modern world? No, they came from a very ancient civilization and a very, I'm not going to say backwards way of thinking, but a very different way of thinking. It took them time to change the way that they think, but I very much grew up in that mentality. It's a very old way of thinking. And that's what sets us apart, is that is who we are. You don't get to come in as a white person in the West and decide that it's because of you that we act this way. We don't act this way because of you. We act this way because of us, because that's our culture. You can't be racist and have such low expectations for the people in this region. And this is where I find more kinship with Palestinians than I will with this girl. Because at least me and Palestinians agree that it's not because of her that we act in the way that we act. We are this way. This is who we are. And we can change. We should change to progress into a better world. When I say we, I mean them. But I'd say generally the people of the Middle East.
Don't all think like you. It's okay. No, let her respond, please. That's fine.
Obviously, not everyone thinks like I do. However, when you are put into a situation where when people are backed into a corner and they don't have proper conditions to live under, they are way more likely to resort to religious fundamentalism. They're way.
Hold on, I'm sorry. I'm not letting her more than 3 seconds. I just watched a video from John Green, crash course from a couple of years ago on the history of Islam, and he summed it up by saying that a region with no resources, with no nothing, was able to progress and produce an Islamic empire. Listen here. This is one of the most fertile regions on planet Earth. Yes, there are deserts here, the same way there are deserts in North America. But there are vast, versatile, and very flourishing regions of the Middle East. All of Iraq, northern Iraq, is forests and mountains with snowy hills, and Israel is this fertile landscape. The coastal plains of Israel feed tons of fruits and vegetables. Almost all of the north of Israel, all of Lebanon, fertile land. This could be a flourishing environment. It's because of the people here and their stupid ideology that's taken over most of the people here through colonization that people think the way they do. They are not backed into a corner, my love. Nobody here is backed into a corner. People do have the option to change out of this. It's shitty leadership, it's shitty culture, religious enforcement, cultural appropriation, all these things, all these buzzwords that you hear in the West. That shit actually happened here in the Middle East. And we don't have freedom because we've been colonized by the Arabs. If we start waking up as people of the Middle East out of the Arab ideology, we might be able to get somewhere. Okay, we might be able to progress into the future, but we need to de-Arabize the entire Middle East that isn't actually Arab. People who are not genetically, or at least not ethnically Arabs, don't have to live under that system just for the sake of uniting as one ridiculous 400 million people ummah that doesn't function properly. Sorry, I'm ranting a lot in this video. Got a lot to add.
Resort to extremism in general.
I don't disagree with that, but I will deny that that's the West's fault.
Hamas is in terms of like just the other the neighboring Arab countries. I don't think continual war and in the Middle East, and all the stuff that America did in the Middle East, which I'm sure you have criticisms of. I don't think that really helped get rid of the influence of groups like ISIS or Al Qaeda, because that just.
Well, I mean, it certainly helped get rid of some of the influence of ISIS because we killed a huge number of them. But again, the notion that ISIS and Al Qaeda and all terrorism is to blame on the West ignores all of Islamic history and the history of the region. It ignores the fact that there were Islamic invasions of Europe back in the 1300s. Again, this sort of ignorance of history that is rooted in the idea that all the forces you see today must be the result of things that America is doing or the West is doing. I don't see any evidence for that.
Sorry, Ben. Also, don't forget, not just Islamic invasions of Europe, Islamic invasions of the Middle East and North Africa. Muslims don't come from the whole region. We're not all Muslim here. I will drive this point home in every freaking video if I have to. Muslims do not come from the entire Middle East. North African, Moroccans were Amazi and Jewish. They prayed to birds. They had like a polytheist culture. Okay, that was across the entire North African strip to Egypt. Egypts were polytheists too. They had an amazing culture with a crazy cool religion. That was erased in the name of Islam. Neither was Israel or Palestine, whatever the hell you want to call it. Philistine, Canaanite, Romans, Jewish. There was no Islam here. That came way later. There's the last to join this region. Same Babylonian, same Assyrian, same Kurdish, same Yazidi, same Mandean. We're not Muslims. We're not all Muslims. There's a small, tiny portion of us that were. Most of us were not.
At times, by the way, when the Arab street has risen up, they promptly replaced more moderate dictators with things like the Muslim Brotherhood, which is exactly what happened during the so-called Arab Spring when they took over for Mohammed Morsi and promptly put in place the Muslim Brotherhood. You can keep blaming economics until the cows come home. You know what the solution to that would be, by the way? I have a solution for this. If what you're saying is right, I have a solution for this. Here's the solution. In 2005, Israel withdrew from the Gaza Strip. The Gaza Strip is an area that is less population dense than both Singapore and Hong Kong. Hundreds of millions, nay, billions of dollars flowed into the Gaza Strip. If people there, and Hamas in particular, really wanted to develop the lives of their citizens and make them better, they could have, and they should. And yet I see very little demand for that. At a certain point, people are going to have to take responsibility for their own actions and stop blaming America and the West for making shitty decisions.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
Appreciate it.
I'm the last person who's going to give America an opportunity to be scot-free. America's fucked up a lot in the Middle East. But as a dual American Israeli, I can acknowledge the fact that America is not the reason to blame that the region looks the way that it does. It is definitely not America's fault. The people in this region have adopted a shitty ideology, and we need to help them wake up and get out of it. That's the reality of the Middle East. We have to help people moderate in the Middle East. And that's all I got to say. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for watching the video. I love you a long time. See you in the next one. Goodbye. If you believe in my content and want to support me, just know your help is needed. There's a bunch of great ways to support me, being PayPal, Buy Me a Coffee, or joining my Patreon community down below. Patreon is the best way to support my channel, and you'll get a bunch of cool perks depending on what tier you join. Another great way to support me is by buying my merchandise on thetravelingclat.com. I regularly drop new merch designs like this beautiful hat, or this amazing shirt, where you can support the channel and get something cool for yourself. I also have an amazing Discord community with people from all over the world. Thank you so much for your support.